is it turning bad for Harry and Meghan? Is the dream gradually, sliding away, particularly with the podcast issue, that if she can't get it out this year, what on earth is going on?
I think so. I think they've struggled. I think, initially when they based themselves over there, it drove me nuts, I have to say, that the American media essentially took a line that, what have those racist Brits done to our American princess? I thought that was very unfair because it was much more nuanced than that, and that initially, of course, as so many people have pointed out, Meghan was treated as a breath of fresh air, and a fantastic addition to the family by the British media. But there's been a change. I think the US media has got bored with them continually moaning about the way they've been treated, and essentially has said, right, we've heard that story. We don't want to hear about that any longer. We want, if you are Americans, essentially, if you're basing yourself here, then you need to show us that you are enterprising people who are creating new lives for yourselves out here. What have you got to show us? And I think they've been beset by problems, really. They've sort of one step forward, two steps back all the time.
Yeah, I mean, this another thing that keeps popping up was, I think you mentioned it earlier, that this idea that Harry could come back and be a part-time royal. Thinking back to Sandringham, the Sandringham summit, which you were reporting on at the time, what do you recall as the what was the feeling then within the households and within reporting on it? Because if they do have a new comms officer, the first time since, we can say that Sarah Latham was the comms officer when you were during the Sandringham summit, who was a big deal, very impressive woman, very experienced, but it ended badly. Could possibly bringing in this new PR team could be a way to relaunch them back into the United Kingdom and maybe push this angle of them wanting to be part-time royals again? Well,
they may try and push it, but I may be proved wrong, but I just can't see it happening. I just don't think that is on the cards. Although I have to say, at the time of the Sandringham summit, a senior royal aide who was very close to the now king, then Prince of Wales, was saying that this was entirely possible, that was sort of certainly pushing that line, that they were open to discussions about that. And then I don't know what happened. It could be that sometimes people who brief the media, even if they're sort of senior people who are authorised to speak to the media, don't get the full story. It's possibly that, or was it that something changed and the Queen, encouraged by the then Prince Charles and Prince William, just essentially said, no, we can't countenance this, that there's no way back. They're either in or they're out. I have to say, you mentioned Sarah Latham, and I fell out with Sarah Latham a little bit. I mean, I'm having a bash for the Royal Press Pack and people at the Palace. And over the years, you do inevitably have fallings out with people over issues. And I've come to realise, actually, that Sarah was in a really difficult position. I mean, she was caught between a rock and a hard place. She was trying to be loyal to the people who employed her, Harry and Meghan. She was getting pelters from the press because of the way that they were behaving. There were staff in the royal household who were complaining about the way Harry and Meghan were treating them. I've certainly spoken to people, and I know, Valentine Lowe has written about this, and I'm sure you've spoken to people who have said that nothing they did for them was ever right, and that there was always a massive inquest after every royal engagement that they did. Why did we do this? Why did you say that? I think it was really, really difficult for a lot of people. And so I haven't actually managed to get in touch with Sarah. Somebody was hoping to put me in touch with her, but I really want to say to her that I'm sorry, actually, for the way I behaved at the time, and I understand the difficult position she was in.
Yeah, I mean, these were really stressful times.
Yes.
Around 2020 or the last couple of years. But whatever happens, whether they get a new communications team and do a real drive in the UK, or whether they just remain in the USA, we will still have loads and loads to talk about and loads and loads to write about. Richard, it's the Prince and Princess of Wales's 13th wedding anniversary, I think, on Monday, which, I'm sure we all send our best wishes to them. It's been a successful partnership. Why do you think it's worked so well? And now, obviously, with the struggles they're going through, they must be closer than ever.
I think so. I read stuff online about the state of their marriage, and I just don't recognise it at all. I'm talking mainly about social media and some of the lunatics on social media, but because whenever I've seen them up close, I think it's very difficult to know what goes on in anybody's marriage. Whether they're public figures or close friends or whatever, things go on behind closed doors. But everything I've seen of that couple suggests to me that they are really close, and the body language, everything, you can just tell that I think anyway, that they're really into each other, and that the marriage has worked. There's a meeting of minds there, I was there on the day, and that whole period. I mean, my life changed the day that they announced that they were getting engaged, and the amount of work just rose exponentially. I used to cycle. I used to take my bike on the train and cycle to the office and do the reverse journey. But I abandoned it from that moment onwards, because there was just like an extra. There were always things to go to first thing in the morning, things to go to late at night, and you just would have added like an extra 3 or 4 hours onto my day to do all that. The wedding, I think, was that whole period from when they got engaged in, I think it was autumn 2010, married in 2011, and then the Jubilee 2012. I think was the high point of the second Elizabethan age, and it's gone up and down since. We're now in a new reign. I think the king has had a much better start to his reign than many people expected. Clearly, things have been blown off course a little bit by his illness and by Kate's illness. It's going to be interesting to see what happens later this year, to see whether they get back on course again.